It's another week in Flames land and a lot more to talk about. A lot of guys doing a lot of things. Are they good? Are they bad? Who knows? Let's talk about it. Welcome inside. Welcome to another episode of the Red Mile Rundown. I am Johnny Stope, your host. And beside me, as always, my co-host, Robert Munich. How we doing, Robert?
It's going all right. It's been pretty depressing being a Flames fan and watching this team over the last 25 games, to say the least. But yeah, outside of Flames land, everything's going pretty solid, except one thing. This is kind of funny. So a little bit of a side note. Today, there was that whole Michael Andlauer soft tampering with the New York Rangers storyline that's going on. Yeah. Well, someone on New York Rangers Twitter, I don't know who it was, they found this video that I posted of, it was from Elliot Friedman Hockey Night in Canada, saying that the Ottawa Senators have interest in Chris Tanev and they're interested in signing him to a contract. Someone found the video, retweeted it, and now it's just blowing up on New York Rangers Twitter. Everyone's saying, oh, is this soft tampering, NHL? Like, NHL, you got to look at this. They're like trying to get back at the Ottawa Senators. So I think that video went from like 20,000 impressions initially. Now it's up to like almost 200,000. Like, it's blowing up on New York Rangers Twitter, which is hilarious. So I've been under siege for most of the day, which is kind of hilarious. But yeah, no, things are going good.
Robert Munich making waves in New York. Speaking of making waves, don't forget to follow the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcast and smash that 5-star rating and leave us a review. We're always trying to get better. We're always trying to make a podcast a little bit better for those who like to listen. We appreciate the downloads and for you guys following along in the journey. Well, Robert, I'm not sure where to begin here, so I'll throw it right over to you here. What did we see this past week for Flames from you? A couple of home games that were interesting, followed up by whatever that was Sunday night in Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, we'll quickly look back on the week that was. I mean, a lot of it is old news by now, but first off, we start with the Calgary-Columbus game, which was kind of the Johnny Gaudreau tribute night, and his family was in town. The Flames, once again, knock it out of the park. Everything that they did on that night was perfect, whether it was the pregame ceremony or naming Johnny Gaudreau the number one star after the game and having Guy on the ice or bringing Guy into the dressing room. Man, they did everything right on that night. You cannot give enough kudos to the Calgary Flames for how they've gone about this whole Johnny Gaudreau situation. So, round of applause to them. Once again, I don't know how the hell some of those guys were able to play hockey that night, especially after that opening ceremony. I mean, we saw Sean Monahan crying. We saw Michael Backlund crying. I mean, for the Columbus Blue Jackets especially, I don't know how they played that game. Like, because a lot of the guys that Johnny played with in Calgary are gone now, right? So, but that's still fresh for the guys in Columbus, and that was crazy. It wasn't a very good game. Flames win 3-0. Wasn't the most exciting game, but I mean, you can't really blame those guys, especially after everything they've gone through. But it was a good 3-0 win, and then we move on to the St. Louis Blues on Thursday. Flames lose 4-3 in overtime. I'd argue it was probably actually one of their better games of the season. I thought they played really well, but they just, once again, had a hard time scoring goals, and Dan Vladar just wasn't able to bail them out when it was all said and done. And then on top of that, you had that controversial OT winner. Let's get your opinion here. Did you think that should have counted, or do you think that should have been no goal on Colton Parayko?
Oh man, people are gonna hate me for this. By rule, that's a goal. I agree with the call on the ice. I agree with the review. It's the loose puck, and everyone's entitled to battle for that puck. And I think it's a good goal.
I think that it was a really tough one for me, because the thing I asked myself is, if Colton Parayko doesn't hit Dan Vladar's pad, does that puck go in? And, is that not goalie interference? But I mean, as we saw after the game, I had about 400 people in my mentions put the rule in place after I called it a controversial goal. So, but like you said, by rule, I guess it does count, but it felt weird. It felt like it shouldn't have counted, but nevertheless, Flames lose overtime.
It definitely was a controversial goal. I definitely can understand why people are upset over it, but it's just how you read the rules. And if that puck was covered up at any point by Dan, it's a completely different set of rules. But with it's a puck, it's free for battle. You had two Flames overskate it, and you just couldn't get the finish on the puck. And so good on Parayko for sticking with it and getting that victory for St. Louis. It was a good hockey game, just with a weird ending.
It was a good game, and the one thing that needs to be pointed out on that overtime goal is Yegor Sharangovich looked like a minor league hockey player. And I'm not talking like AHL. I'm talking like Pee Wee or Adam hockey player. He looked terrible on that play. Robert Thomas walked him and just it looked like two guys in completely different leagues. It was honestly embarrassing for Yegor Sharangovich how bad he looked on that play. If he wasn't so soft and he wasn't so bad defensively on that play, Colton Parayko probably doesn't even score the OT winner, and the Flames are still playing. Bad look on Sharangovich, to say the least. And then we transition to Sunday night in Dallas. They lose 6-2. I thought that they were pretty competitive for the first two periods. Like, they were in the game, but then they just got their doors blown off them in the third period there. Dallas, I believe, they scored 4 straight goals in quick succession. The Calgary Flames didn't even look close in the third period. It looked like two teams in two different leagues. It was tough to watch. And the big thing for me is I just found the Flames just could not get anything going offensively. And I thought it just killed their momentum. I thought they weren't able to build up any sort of momentum shift to shift because they literally could not get anything going in the offensive zone. They couldn't make passes. They couldn't make plays. They couldn't get scoring chances. And I thought it killed any sort of energy they had on Sunday.
Yeah, they were in that hockey game, but they never felt like they were threatening to win that hockey game, if that makes any sense. I always felt like Dallas controlled that game, and the Flames were just there for 2 periods. You didn't see that next step taken. You normally see at the beginning of a third period where the Flames ramp up their intensity, they ramp up their effort. You see their work boots get strapped up a little tighter, and they dig in a little bit more. You didn't quite see that in this third period versus Dallas. And once Dallas got rolling, they decided they were going to call game. It got out of hand in a hurry. And it's safe to say that that's probably one of Dustin Wolf's worst games of the season, and I don't think I'm hot taking there. I saw a lot of people trying to give excuses to Dustin Wolf for the play of last night because it was so lopsided in that third period. But you've got to have a couple of those saves. The one behind the net where he kind of gives the puck away, a little indecisive for me at times, and it showed up on the score sheet, unfortunately, this time around for Dustin Wolf. He's had 3 pretty rough starts on the road here now, back to back to back. The whole team has, really. But, Dustin Wolf just wasn't the sharpest yesterday, so that didn't help matters more. I thought the structure in front of Dustin Wolf was really bad in that third period. Ball ends up being a -5 on the night, which is really bad. So we saw a lot of uncharacteristic things defensively and structure-wise from the Flames the longer that game went on against Dallas. And when you're not getting the saves on top of that, it's hard to be able to be in those kind of hockey games. It kind of shows as well that Dallas is in another stratosphere compared to where the Flames are right now. Dallas is where the Flames hope to be one day, but right now, just not enough from the Flames. And unfortunately, on that night, just got away from them in the third period. And Dallas, they looked really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, like basically what we've seen over the last few weeks here is that when the Calgary Flames don't get incredible goaltending, they lose games. I mean, that's what we're seeing. I mean, we saw it against St. Louis. We saw it against the Dallas Stars. Like, when they don't get the saves, they're absolutely screwed because they can't score, and they struggle on the road, and it's getting tough to watch. And I would agree with you. I thought that was probably either that or going back to last season. Dustin Wolf had a start at home against the San Jose Sharks where he got lit up pretty good. Either that or Sunday's game was probably Wolf's worst start of his career. Now, here's the thing with Dustin Wolf for me. I really believe that there's going to be a lot of highs and lows this season with him. I know he got off to a great start. He had the incredible 2-3 week stretch there in November where everyone was getting really excited and talking about the Calder and the Vezina and all that kind of stuff, which was deserved. Wolf was playing great. But I also think at the same time, we kind of let our expectations, get away from us a little bit with him. I think we just still have to realize that this is a really young goalie. This is an inexperienced goalie at the NHL level. And taking the step from the AHL to the NHL is massive, especially in net. I think it's probably got to be, going from AHL shooters to NHL shooters is such a huge monumental step. I think it's probably the biggest of any position in hockey. So my message to Flames fans is don't get down on Dustin Wolf at all.
Mm-hmm.
Just be patient with him. Like for this is just me. I'm giving Dustin Wolf like 2 to 3 years to find his game. I don't really care how he plays this year, to be totally honest.
Mm-hmm.
This year for me is just about him getting comfortable. Second year, third year, the Flames are not supposed to be good. I don't really care. It's beyond that when you want him to start to step up and be that starting goalie. So I would just kind of caution Flames fans, just like temper your expectations for this kid. Don't put pressure on him to be the Calder finalist or to be in the Vezina Trophy conversation as a rookie. Just kind of pump the brakes a little bit. He's going to be good, but just give him some time.
Yeah. And it's okay to have these off nights. It's okay to have rough nights. It's all part of the learning curve and the growth of a goaltender. Mika Kiprasov had those when we had him around. Trevor Kidd had those when he was a young goaltender. Every goaltender will go through a stretch where they're going to learn, and it's not because he's too small. It's not because he's not athletic enough. It's not because any one thing. It's just part of growing as a goaltender. And he'll learn certain things about shooters and situations that'll help him improve. He'll learn a lot from last night's game, like something as simple as smacking the ice to let them know the power play was ending. He didn't see that last night. It led to a chance and a goal against. He'll learn to make those decisions behind his net with the puck a little quicker. He'll learn his strengths. He'll learn how to work in the National Hockey League, and you're going to have these nights. I'm with you, Robert, here. This is more than just this season. It's not like he has to put himself as the bona fide number one starter by January or he's a bust. It's a learning curve. It's a learning situation. So it's okay for me to come on a podcast and say he wasn't very good against the Dallas Stars. And it's okay because that's how you learn. That's how you grow as a goaltender. And it'll be interesting to see now when he goes back out into his next start, whenever that might be, whether that's Thursday night or on the weekend or wherever the heck that might be for Dustin Wolf. The thing is, learn from it and take the next step. And he wasn't the sole reason the the Flames weren't very good against the Dallas Stars either. He just didn't help the situation at all. It's road struggles for the Flames that continue to rear their ugly head here, Robert. And I'm going to read a stat I got from Ryan Pinder. Everyone knows Ryan Pinder.
I have that exact tweet in my notes. I know exactly what you're going to say. That's awesome. I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, because this is what we want to go with this conversation. This wasn't just to rag on the Flames for not being very good in Dallas. This is to bring up a bigger point. The Flames do not have a regulation road win since October 13th in Edmonton. That's the third game of the season for those who don't remember. That's the third game of the season. We're at game 28 here. They're 1-7-4 since then. Their only road win since that win in Edmonton was that overtime comeback win against Montreal. And of course, we all know about the goals as well. They haven't scored 4 goals in a game again since that Edmonton game. What do you make, Robert, yourself of the Flames on the road? What are we seeing? Because when I watch this team at home and on the road, I'm not seeing a ton of difference in their work ethic, in their approach. Is it for you something as simple as they're not getting the matchups on the road? Is it just what is happening to this Flames team on the road? Because when I watch the tape between home and road games, that stat's wild from Ryan Pinder, but I just can't pinpoint why we're seeing that from the Calgary Flames.
Well, here's another wild stat. So this is from Pat Steinberg, Flames Talk. He brought this up today. So
I had that Calgary tweet in my notes too.
Perfect. So on the road this season, the Calgary Flames have played 855 minutes. Of those 855 minutes, they've had the lead for 52 of those minutes. That's for 6.2% of the games on the road they've had the lead, which is by far and away the worst in the NHL. Honestly, John, I have no idea what the hell is going on the road, but quite simply, they're not getting goaltending. The goaltending's really struggled on the road, and we all know, like I mentioned earlier in the show here, when the Flames don't get elite goaltending, they lose hockey games. And then on top of that, they can't score goals on the road either. I mean, they can't score goals at home, but they can't score goals on the road either. Special teams are a mess on the road. To be quite honest with you, I don't know what the hell is going on. This team is not that bad. You look at some of the talent on this roster, they are not bad enough to the point where they're leading for only 6.2% of of games on the road. It makes absolutely no sense. The big thing for me is like I'm just seeing like a lack of chemistry from this team on the ice, especially from the forwards. Last year, like we saw, especially at the end of the last season, like Coleman and Backlund were going. Sharon Govich and Huberdeau seemed to kind of find some chemistry. Kadri and Kuzmenko and Pospisil had chemistry. Like they had lines that were going. They had guys that were clicking. We haven't like seen that at all this year, especially on the road. It seems like almost, every like 3 or 4 games, Ryan Huska's having to change up the lines because nothing is working right now. And I don't know how they fix that, because I think it just comes down to the players stepping up and finally finding some chemistry with one another. Like, I mean, we're seeing it a tiny bit with Kadri and Huberdeau, but even that, I'm really grasping for straws on that one. So it's tough to watch. If you're a Flames fan, it's like, what's the point of even watching this team when they're on the road if they don't lead? If they never have a lead, they don't win games. It's
right.
They don't score goals. I've heard a lot of people, and I'd be curious to get your take on this. I've heard a lot of people lately say, like, this is a really entertaining team. Like I heard like Eric Francis say that. I heard some fans on the post-game show say that yesterday. Like, this is a really entertaining team. Like, this is an exciting team to watch. I think that could not be further from the truth. I think this team is incredibly boring to watch right now. Where are you on the entertainment factor right now?
At home, they're entertaining, because at home they seem to be more engaged. At home, they seem to be able to find a way to finish and to be in these games in the end and find a way to get these points at home. On the road, more to your point here, when they're just always chasing these hockey games, it doesn't make for a fun watch, because they're not able to chase these hockey games. They're not able to come back. They're not built to come from behind all these times, and trying to live off this third period magic is finally, I think, caught up with this team, unable to score more than 3 goals a game forever. Those that think that this team is exciting to watch, I wonder if they're just picking out a few players. Like Zari's fun to watch when he's going. Kevin Ball's fun to watch when he's going on his game. So players at times are fun to watch, but as a whole, I'm more on your side here, especially on the road, where it's like, okay, guys, you need to do more than just a dump and chase here. We got to start creating. There's a lot of outside shots. There's a lot of outside playing with the puck, but they're not getting inside. They're not having any chances inside. I don't remember what game it was. I believe it was, I think it was the game against St. Louis, where they only had 6 high danger chances in the entire game. And I'm like, how they were lucky to get that game to overtime, even though they played well. And it was, I guess people would say it would be exciting to watch the game. They played well. Only 6 high danger chances at home in a game that you would classify as one of their better games of the year. That paints a picture for me. I don't find them overly exciting to watch. I find players more exciting to watch. Like, I do enjoy watching Zari go to work. I do enjoy watching Rasmus Anderson when he's on his game. When Dustin Wolf's dialed in, he's fun to watch. When Vladar's dialed in, he's fun to watch. But overall, Robert, I'm with you a little bit there, especially on the road. Like, that game against Dallas, the longer that game went on, the tougher it was to watch, and the less fun I was watching that hockey game. And I haven't found myself in the past feeling that way. You go back to that road trip they just had as well, when they went through Buffalo and those places. That was hard to watch those games. They weren't exciting games to watch. It's interesting when you watch this team at home and on the road as well.
You're right. I mean, yeah, the energy levels are definitely different too. I find the team's a lot more energized at home, and I don't know if that's just the home crowd or what, but yeah, it's funny. Like I texted you yesterday during the game, and I said, like, I literally fell asleep during the first period. Like I clip highlights. Like, I need to be, awake and kind of on my game. And I literally fell asleep during the first period because the game was so boring. And it's been kind of that way all season. It's interesting. Like, during a rebuild, like, despite if you're talented or not, you can still play entertaining hockey, and the Flames just aren't doing that right now. I think it's because Ryan Huska, he knows his team is not talented, and it's his job to win hockey games. It's his job to get the most out of every single one of these players. And I think he realizes that the only way to do that is to play, lockdown, shut down defense, play extremely structured, block shots, don't take chances, don't take risks. And when you do that, and you're not a talented team, I think it's a recipe for disaster. I actually think playing that style makes a lot more sense when you're a really good team with a lot of talent and a lot of offensive firepower, because you're able to counteract and you're able to move up the ice with speed and generate offense off the rush. The Flames can't do that. It's like the only way this team is going to be able to score goals is on the power play when there's more space out there, because they don't have the talent at 5-on-5, and they don't play the system at 5-on-5 that's conducive for generating offense. And it sucks as a fan, to be quite honest. Like, we all know they're not going to make the playoffs this year. We've been talking about some of the numbers. The numbers are terrible. They've gotten lucky this year with really good goaltending and lots of third period comebacks. The fact that they're in the position that they are is honestly staggering. It's mind boggling.
Yeah.
So they're not going to make the playoffs. It's like, from a fan perspective, I'm like, could you not just like increase the entertainment value a little bit? Like, do you really have to play this system, Ryan Huska, just to finish, 10th last in the NHL or 11th last in the NHL? Like, it's tough because he's just trying to do his job, but at the same time, from a fan perspective, these games are getting like pretty hard to watch, and we're at the beginning of December. We're not even in the dog days of the season yet.
Yeah.
Like, I'm almost worried, like, what's January and February going to look like?
Yeah, and I don't think he's getting a lot of help either. You look at your veterans that you rely on to pull this team along here. He's been better, but Nazem Kadri with the slow start. Jonathan Huberdeau transforming his game, whatever he's doing, is not playing the sexy game that we've seen Jonathan Huberdeau in the past play, where he's all over the ice and he's throwing those beautiful passes like he did in Florida. We're not seeing that from these veterans, and so he's relying on these veterans to play a basic, simple hockey game, and it bores you to death. And that's how you get to have things like, you're only 28th in goals in the National Hockey League. You're 9th in shots per game. Your power play is middle of the pack. Your shooting percentage is 31%. Face-off percentage 29%. It's very basic things that are making your team play this very boring style, because that's all that they're capable of. There's no game breakers in Calgary right now, and so you're going to be a bottom of the pack team with this type of roster. And we glossed a little bit at the beginning of the season with some of the great things we saw from these guys, but we're seeing the regression back to the norm, back to what this team actually is, in my opinion here. And that is a team that's going to be fighting for a top 10 draft pick. It's going to finish in that little murky area that people are scared of losing that draft pick as well. It's very interesting watching this team, and those who are calling this team exciting. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, terrific, have at her. I'm just not seeing the same picture that you guys are, especially when you're whipping out things like the goals allowed are 11th in the league, the shots allowed in goal are 24th in the league, your penalty kill is 28th in the league. It's just it's all things that are not conducive to an exciting hockey team. And to your point, you can be exciting while you rebuild. Just look at San Jose. How many San Jose games have you watched this year? I found myself watching at least 7 or 8 of them this year, just based on the fact that I like watching that team compete. That's where I think the Flames are missing here. They don't have that excitement to them outside 1 or 2 players here.
Well, and that's where you want to draft those young, elite, talented players, like a Macklin Celebrini, like a Will Smith. Like, those two guys are like must-see TV right now. They're so much fun to watch, and the Flames are the furthest thing from it. And like, another stat to illustrate that, this is just us stealing more stats from people in the media. So this one came from Boomer and Barnburner today. Jonathan Huberdeau, he leads the Calgary Flames in goals with 9 this season. Every team in the NHL except the Calgary and Anaheim have a 10-goal score. The other one he brought out, which I thought was hilarious, is Nazem Kadri, Jonathan Huberdeau. They're tied for the team lead in points right now with 17 each. It's the lowest point total from a leading scorer on any team in the NHL. That kind of just says it all right there. I think if you look on NHL.com and you scroll down the stat leaders, the point leaders on the season, you got to get to like 130 to find the first Calgary Flame. It's bleak, man. It's super bleak, and I don't know. I do think it is going to turn around. Some of these guys are just too talented and also very streaky. It's one thing I don't think a lot of people are talking about is just how streaky some of these scores are. Like, we saw it with Kadri. Kadri can go on these 20, 30 game runs where he does nothing and then all of a sudden, it's a point per game player. Kuzmenko is insanely streaky. Sharon Govich is incredibly streaky. So it wouldn't surprise me that within the next month or two, some of these guys like really turn their game around and start to put up some points in pretty impressive fashion. But it's not happening right now. It's not even coming close to happening right now. It's tough to watch at times.
All right, now, Robert, now that we've gone through that very inspiring portion of the podcast and making Flames sound very exciting to watch, let's try and find some things here that are exciting to watch and exciting for this Flames team. And that's the recent call-ups of Walker Duehr and Jacob Pelche. I'll give you my take on these guys, and then I'll throw it over to you here for your take on these guys. These guys have come up here and played a couple of games now for the Flames and have brought something that I think has been lacking from a lot of these other guys, and that's been a bit of energy. I think Walker Duehr uses energy very well in every game he's played in. I've really liked a lot of what Pelche has brought being back to the National Hockey League, kind of realizing that this might be his last kick of the can with the Flames here. He's had some mistakes, but he's also had some really good play as well. He scored a nice goal the other night as well. I've actually liked these additions to the Flames lineup because they brought the energy. They haven't had the massive impact like some people were talking about last year with Zari and Pospisil, but they've had a nice impact on the bottom part of the roster that's allowed maybe a little bit more energy to the lineup, and you can see why the Flames rewarded these two guys who had great seasons in the AHL on the go, rewarded them with this call-up and awarded them an opportunity to be back in the Flames lineup. Both these guys, kind of a second and third chance of being on the Flames roster and in the lineup here, and I think both of them realize what's at stake here for themselves. I've overall liked their game, Dallas game aside for both of these guys, but I've overall liked these two and their additions to the lineup. What do you make of Jacob Pelche and his recent call-up here and the energy of Walker Duehr added to the Flames lineup?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a small sample size, obviously, with only 3 games, but I think it's been like a little hit and miss. I mean, at times I've really liked kind of the energy and the speed that Jacob Pelche brings to the game. I like kind of his attitude that kind of radiates positivity. And, like when he scored his goal there, he got so excited. Like he was so fired up, and you could tell his teammates were super fired up for him. And that element is missing from the Flames, in my opinion. Like, when I watch this team, I don't think of them as like a super energetic group. You see Ryan Lomberg brings a lot of energy. Outside of him, like who are like the raw guys? Like who's the guys that are like big personality and lots of positivity and bringing energy to the team? Like outside of Pelche and Lomberg, like a little bit, yeah, a little bit of Uyghur, like Rasmus Anderson I'd throw in there. But like, Kevin Ball kind of seems like he's a fun guy. Outside of that, there's not like a ton going on in that room. So I like that energy and all that kind of stuff that Pelche brings to the table. But the one thing I'm thinking about is like what is it going to take for Jacob Pelche to become a full-time NHLer? And like, what role is he going to need to play? Like, I'll ask you, like, what's his long-term outlook in the NHL? Like, where do you see him having success with the Calgary Flames organization? What kind of roster spot do you see him playing, or what role do you see him playing?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really good question. I really would think that he should be able to be a guy that provides a lot of energy in a third line role, but a guy who's also able to put some goals in the net for yourselves. A Micro Frolik-esque type role when he was with the Flames. That's kind of what I think Pelche can become in the National Hockey League. The biggest thing for me with him is he's got to find that consistency even from shift to shift, not even game to game, from shift to shift, where you see him have really high energy shifts and then he's come out a little flat on the next shift. So if he can find that consistency to his game, bring that energy and find that scoring touch like we saw the other night when he scored that goal, I think he can be a very good third line player. Now, for a first round draft pick, other people might be groaning at that, but it is what it is at this point, and not every first-round draft pick is going to be your top-line guy. You're going to need these role players, and I think that's what Jacob Pelche can be. For me, just he's got to find that consistency in that game, though, and that's what's really plagued him his entire time with Calgary. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I don't think Pelche is skilled enough to be a top 6 forward. Like I don't think he brings that dynamic element of offense to the table enough to be a top 6 forward. And then I don't think he has the size and the physicality to be a fourth line player. So, through process of elimination, it's pretty much the third line or bust for this guy. And I think the way that he becomes a full-time NHLer is he becomes a third line winger. He scores 12 to 15 goals a year, kind of 25 to 35 points, plays on the penalty kill, brings energy and enthusiasm, like is a good leader.
Yeah.
That's where I see him being an NHL player. And what I'm hoping is I really hope the Flames give him a long look this year. Like I wouldn't mind seeing him up with the big club now for the rest of the season and giving him an opportunity to prove that he can be that player. Because I do think he could be a decent third line winger, and he could probably be pretty cheap for the next few years. And I think all his teammates love him, and I do think that's important. So one other thing I was kind of thinking about is with Pelche and Dewar, there's a big time opportunity for these guys to become regulars playing Ryan Huska's system.
Yep.
And when I say that, I mean, in order to succeed in Ryan Huska's system, I don't think you need to be the most skilled guy, but I think you need to be able to buy in 100% to what he's preaching. So it's like, if you're Walker Dewar, you're Jacob Pelche, if you can play really good defense, if you can stick to the structure, if you can block shots, and you can provide some speed, physicality, and energy to the team, there's no reason why Walker Dewar and Jacob Pelche can't be full-time NHLers, because they don't need to be super skilled guys to play the roles that Ryan Huska wants them to play. I don't think Walker Dewar is like a skilled player from an NHL level perspective, like at all. Like he's a very good AHL player, but I don't think he has the skills or like the high hockey IQ to be like a really like good long-time NHLer. But what he does have is he has physical tools. Like he can skate like the wind, he can hit, he can block shots. Like if he just commits to playing Huska's system, he could be a fourth liner for this team for, potentially the rest of the season. So I don't think there's a very high ceiling for either one of these guys. I think they're both, depth players, role players long-term in the NHL, but if they really buy in and they listen to Ryan Huska and they do everything that he says, I think there could be something there potentially. Do you kind of see it the same way?
I do. I think there is something there for Pelche. I think the opportunity is here. I'm with you. I think he should stay with the Flames the rest of the season, and he doesn't have to play every game. But when you're in the games, find your consistency, find your footing, and be that player that we know you can be. And there's no reason for Walker Dewar that he can't provide to this Flames lineup what Kirkland was providing, shootout goals aside. There's no reason why Walker Dewar still can't be that energy guy, fourth line guy, crash and bang guy, use his speed, get it to go to the net, and be just a bit of a pest to play against. Kirkland's not all that more skilled than Walker Dewar is, in my opinion. Those guys fit those roles, and I love what you said there about just buying in to what Ryan Huska wants these players to do, wants how he wants your fourth line, your third line to play. And if these guys can do that, I think there is roles for these guys on this type of team in this type of cycle. Maybe on a contender, neither of these guys are anywhere near the NHL, but where the Flames are right now, these guys have an opportunity. The door's open for them. Now it's up to them to seize that opportunity. I like both guys too. They're both really nice guys, and I hope they can find a measured success. There are other young players on this roster, and you sent me a list of a few RFAs coming up that you wanted to talk about, and we want to discuss what we would do with these guys after this season. We have 4 that we want to get through. All of these guys are RFAs at the end of the season, and you broached the question of how should the Flames approach their contracts? Are we bridge dealing or long-term? So let's go one by one, Robert, here through these 4 guys. You give me your take, I'll give you my take, and we'll see where we land on these guys. Let's start with your guy, the guy that you brag about a lot. He's been very good defensively for the Flames. Let's start with Braden Pahal. What do you do with Braden Pahal RFA-wise at the end of the season if you were in charge here, Robert?
You know what? With Pahal, I'm conflicted because I've really liked how he's played this year. as a number 6 defenseman, I think he's played that role like pretty perfectly, and I really like the physicality that he's brought to the table. But at the same time, moving forward, I almost want his role in his spot in the lineup to be given to a younger guy. Like, I think I'd rather see potentially a Poirier, a Kuznetsov, a Solovyov, Hunter Brustevich eventually. Like, I'd almost rather see that third defense pair spot in the Flames lineup given to young players rather than a guy like Pahal. But at the same time, man, like, he's been really, really good. I don't know. I'm conflicted on this one. If you had to put a gun to my head, I would probably say maybe you keep him for, you see if you can sign him for maybe another year or two, and then maybe move on from Tyson Barrie, Joel Hanley, and Jake Bean, and then maybe open that spot up for a younger player. But I would say at most I'd probably go like a 1-year deal for Pahal, or I would look to maybe trade him at the deadline, see like, if you could get like a 4th or a 5th round pick for him or something like that, and then open that spot up to a young player.
My answer was in your answer. I think Pahal, for me, should become the new number 7 for the Flames next year, because I want to also see a young kid in this lineup. But I think Braden Pahal on a 1-year or maybe even a 2-year contract is still a hungry Braden Pahal. It's still going to push him to be better. It's still going to push him to bring out the best in his game, which should in turn push these young kids when they battle one another for positions on this team. I think he can fit that number 7 defenseman role very well for a team like the Flames. And if your young kid needs a night off, say Poirier's struggling, he needs a night off, Pahal can go into the lineup and be that guy. I like Braden Pahal. He's young enough as well that he fits within the Flame structure and the players that they're looking for. So for me, this is a guy that 1 or 2 year contract. It's going to be low money. He's not going to command a lot, but he could fit that role, and you can stop playing around with these aging veteran defensemen, the Brad Treliving specialty defensemen that this team continually tries to collect over and over. Make it a younger defenseman. Make it Braden Pahal. I think he could fit that role very, very well. Let's go to the other defenseman on your list. This is the guy that I'm high on, and this is a guy that I'm giving term to. I love Kevin Ball. I love what he's brought to the lineup. I think I've seen enough to see the progression in his game, the way he works with Rasmus Andersson. I'm ready to give this guy a 5-6 year deal. I'm ready to commit to him a little bit because he's still young. He's growing. Yes, small sample size with the Flames, but there's nothing in his game that suggests that he's going to fall off and that he's going to do nothing but progress as he's been grown in the role given to him by Ryan Huska and the coaching staff here. I love what he brings to the Calgary Flames. I don't think Rasmus Andersson has the season he's having without Kevin Ball. I've glossed on Kevin Ball in past episodes of this show. So I'm ready to commit to this guy a little bit longer term. Where are you at with Kevin Ball?
I like the idea of a long-term contract, but I think I would wait till the end of the season. Like for you, John, based off of just what you've seen from him so far in his time with the Flames, would you be willing to give him that type of contract, or would you wait till the end of the year and see how the rest of the season goes?
I think I'd wait a little bit longer to the end of the year, closer to the trade deadline type of thing. But I'd be ready to give him that money, because if he keeps progressing how he is right now, that contract's just only going to go up in value. He's only going to command more money from you. So the longer in my opinion, the longer you wait on this contract, the more expensive it's going to be. But at the same time, you're not really worried about the cap right now. But sign him. I would sign him. I wouldn't wait to the end of the year. I would be willing to do it sooner than that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it just comes down to, like, what do you think this guy is long term? Like, do you think that he's just off to a really good start and he's playing with a really good partner, and maybe that's why his game looks so good right now? Or, if you take Rasmus Andersson away from him, is he more like a third pair guy? And, you don't want to be paying third pair guys $4 or $5 million a year. So it's just, I find that whole conversation pretty interesting.
Yeah, fair point.
For me personally, I think I would probably just wait till the end of the year. Let's see if he can keep up this pace. Let's see if he can keep playing at this same level for 82 games. I don't like the idea of giving guys a lot of money just because of a hot start. Like, I think we're kind of seeing it a little bit right now with Yegor Sharangovich. Like I'm almost wondering if the Flames have a little bit of buyer's remorse for signing him as far in advance as they did. Because I mean, as of right now, it's not looking like a great contract, the extension. You don't want that to happen with Kevin Ball. But what I will say is love the way he's been playing, love the way he's trending. I really like the age. I like the type of player he is. He's kind of a unicorn in the Flames organization in terms of size and being a defensive defenseman. So I really like that. And as of right now, I'm definitely leaning towards a long-term extension, but I would just say maybe wait till the end of the year and see what happens. But really like what I see from him. And I do think that there is probably a long-term fit with him and the Flames.
Very interested to see where you'd go with this next guy, whether you'd bridge him, whether you want to go long term with this guy. Matt Coronado, since his recall from the AHL, has really taken off for the Calgary Flames. Slowed down a little bit the last couple of games here, but where are you at with Matt Coronado and his contract? Because this is one that I'm not sure where I'm really willing to go yet. What about you?
Yeah, me too. And I don't know where Coronado's mind is at in terms of like his long-term future with the Flames. Does he want to stay with the team on a long-term deal, or does he want to take a bridge and kind of walk himself to becoming a UFA? It's going to be interesting to see what he does. But the thing with me is like, I don't like paying wingers, those kind of middle six wingers, a ton of money, because I think you can find them, whether it's in free agency or through trades or even offer sheets, drafting. Like I think you can find those players a lot easier than like centers and defensemen. Yeah. So I don't like the idea of giving out a ton of money to a guy like Coronado, but I kind of see him long term as like a 20 to 30 goal guy in that kind of 50 to 60 point range. And that's valuable. Yep. But I don't know if I'd be willing to go long term just yet. I don't know exactly just how good he is quite yet. So my guess is that I would think they're going to bridge him probably to maybe like a 2-year extension worth like, $3-4 million a year or something like that. And then just see where it goes. I don't know if I'm ready to fully commit a 5 or 6 year deal to him just yet. Where do you stand with him?
I honestly wonder if both sides would just say, let's take a 1-year deal and let's actually show you what the player has. I wonder if the Flames would approach it with, here's a prove it deal. Show us what you actually are. And I wonder if Matt Coronado would be on the same page saying, well, let me show you what I actually have here. Because you've seen really good from Matt Coronado, and we've seen him struggle at times where it's, well, let's go to the American Hockey League and figure yourself out here. So I wonder if it's just one of those 1-year deals. Let's revisit it next year after we have another season under our belt to see what we actually have together in this partnership. And maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe it does work out where it's a long-term deal after that. But I think that's where I'm at with Coronado. Let's do this 1-year prove it type of deal and revisit this next year. And I know that you're going to have the other stipulations where he'll have arbitration rights will kick in and all that kind of stuff. But that's stuff that doesn't really matter to me right now. It's all about what do we have in this player. And so I think it'd be at the 1 year. Let's show me what you've got, Matt, and we'll revisit this conversation.
The other way you could kind of go about like thinking about it is,
yeah,
like, so the Flames, they're probably going to start to turn this around and be legitimately competitive. And like, I think it's going to be longer than a lot of people think. Like, I'm thinking like 4 or 5 years. So when that time rolls around, like, don't you want a guy like Matt Coronado making 4.5 million? Like, if he's scoring you 30 goals, like say he's 25, 26 years old and he's like a constant 30 goal scorer. If you can sign him now to like a 7 or 8 year deal and keep it in that 4 or 5 range. Yeah. I mean, there could be some really good value there. Like, I mean, it's one of the things the Flames didn't do with Andrew Mangiapane. They continually bridged him. Yep. And, I'm thinking after his rookie year, if they would have signed him to a long-term deal, they probably could have got him in like the sort of 3 to 4 million range. And that would have been a pretty incredible contract for a long time. Instead, they wait till he has a career year and they end up spending almost $6 million a year on him. Like, if you're the Flames, like, I don't know if you want to make that same mistake with Matt Coronado, especially with the cap going. Like, if the cap, if he signed him to like a 7-8 year deal, and the cap gets to like 120, 130 million, whatever it might end up being, and he's only making like 4 to 4.5 million, like that could be a major steal for a team who's looking to, start to compete for a cup 4 or 5 years from now. So that's kind of something interesting to think about when it comes to him.
Yeah, didn't think of it that way. That's very good point by you. Last guy on the list here is my favorite guy to talk about. But I'll let you go first on this one. Depending what you think of Connor Zary as a center or a winger, I think changes this conversation a whole heck of a lot. What do you make of Connor Zary? Do you keep him at center? Are you more if he's a winger type of person? Do we bridge this guy long-term, sign this guy? This one's a very, very interesting one, which I can see going a number of different ways. But where do you sit with Connor Zary?
Well, I wrote about it at the beginning of the season when Connor Zary got off to that really hot start, and I said that I think the Flames should sign him long-term, and I have not changed my mind. I do think that's the best course of action with him, and I know his numbers aren't quite as good as some of the comparables out there, like your Dylan Guenthers of the world, those types of contracts. The numbers quite aren't there, and he's not quite as dynamic of a player as some of those guys are, but I think just based off of watching him, like you can see he's super smart. Like you can see the vision is there, the hockey IQ is there, the hands are there, like all the elements that you want to invest in a young player, he has. And also, I mean, like, there's also kind of the intangibles. Like, he seems like he's a future leader, in my opinion. He seems like an awesome guy. People love him. People love him around the team. That stuff's important when you're a team like the Calgary Flames. So I would definitely be willing to give him like a 7 or 8 year deal. If you could get him in the 6s, I think that would be ideal. But if you have to go low 7s, it's something that I would seriously consider. Because like I said, between now and, 7, 8 years from now, who knows where the salary cap's going to be?
Yeah.
Barring another pandemic, this thing's going up, like I said, 110 to probably upwards of 130 million between now and, 2033 or whatever year it's going to be. So that... if you get him for around like 6 to 7, that could be a big time steal in his prime years. So I am all for signing this kid long term. I think he checks a lot of boxes, and I like what I've seen from him at center, and I just only think it's only going to go up from here.
This is the classic example of where you use Mangiapane and keep bridging him. This is where you can make that mistake with Connor Zary. I think you're starting to see a lot from him at center. And once his scoring touch kicks off here and his ability to produce at a more regular level kicks off here, this guy is just going to skyrocket in value. So I think this is an opportunity for the Flames to get out in front of something and keep the cost down a little bit here for them. I'm right there with you when you talk about contract long term. Mid 6s would be really good for me for signing this player. Everyone knows who listens to this show how much I love Connor Zary, what he brings to this lineup. This guy's future captain material. This guy's a leader. This guy's going to be a guy you can help build your team around. This guy brings the energy every night. This guy's one of your most dynamic forwards on the team as of right now. And once he can find that scoring touch on a more consistent basis, I think this guy can be a 70-point type of guy a year and a centerman that you can really rely on in all kinds of key situations. We have to remember Michael Backlund is closer to retiring than to signing another contract here. With the Flames, you're going to need someone to take over that type of a role. And I think Connor Zary might be that guy that fits right into that role. Your 2C can take on a lot of heavy matchups and produce at the same time. He has that potential, in my opinion. So I'm right there with you. Get out in front of this one if you're Trey Conroy. Sign the long-term extension with this guy. Give him a bit of money here. And because I think he's only going to cost you more if the longer that you wait. I'm a big fan of Connor Zary, and I really think that this is a good one for the Flames to get out in front of on that as well. Really good, interesting conversation with your RFAs and what you should do with them. It's really easy to talk UFAs and be like, "Oh, just trade that guy or trade this guy." When it comes to your RFAs, there's a lot more thought that goes into these conversations because you have to think arbitration rights. Is he a fit? Is he a center? Is he a winger? What type of defenseman is he? Very interesting conversation. Anything else on these RFAs, Robert, here before we move on to another topic here?
No, I mean, you're right. It's super interesting, and a lot of it is just a gamble. Like these
100%.
guys they have no idea if Connor Zary is going to be a 70-point guy or not. You can project it as much as you can, but you don't truly know what it is. So it's definitely like a risk reward type of situation. And I always think that with young players like this, if you can get them locked in from, their 23, 24-year-old season to their, low 30s, I
Yep.
think you do it almost every single time. I haven't seen, like, when you're projecting these guys out, like what are the things you kind of look for? Like for me, it's a lot of hockey IQ. It's a lot of smarts.
Yep.
And then also if you have like maybe one or two dimensions of your game that are elite or high end, I think you invest in those types of guys. So like for Coronado,
Yep.
a shot. I think you want to invest in that shot because he seems like a 20, 30 goal guy. And he also seems really smart. And Connor Zary, it's the hockey IQ and the hands and the playmaking. You want to invest in that. So I the more I think about it, like I initially was kind of hesitant on Coronado. The more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm speaking out loud, the more I kind of like the idea of a long-term deal for a guy like him as well. Like if you get him, Ball, and Zary locked up at a lower number, I mean, that could be hugely beneficial when this team is ready to kind of make that turn and become competitive again. I think it's something the Flames should seriously consider doing.
Yeah, I'm always at the mindset of always bet on skill. You rarely are burned when you bet on skill. Robert, I'm going to call an audible here. Let's save that AHL conversation we had lined up for the next show because we're getting up against it, and I really want to hit these other two topics with these two Flame veterans before we close out the show here today. Let's start with Nazem Kadri. This is your topic here. The Nazem Kadri rumors to Toronto. What do you make of those? Do you see this kind of move actually happening? Do you want to see this move? Where do you stand with the Nazem Kadri to Toronto rumors?
Well, it seems like it's like there's something there because there's a lot of different people around the hockey world talking about it, and it's not just like our like Flames Nation guys like Pinder and Boomer and Calgary. It's also like I know like Jeff Merrick has talked about it, and I've seen some other guys bring it up. David Pagnotta at the fourth period, he's talked about it a bunch. So I think it's real, but here's the thing we gotta worry about a little bit is who's the GM in Toronto? It's Brad Treliving. What does Brad Treliving do? He's in on every player. We saw it for 8-9 years in Calgary. Oh, the Flames are in on this guy. The Flames are in on that guy. The Flames are in on that guy. They came in second. This is just what Brad Treliving does. This guy makes a million phone calls. He leaks it to insiders. He says he's in on everybody, but he ends up never doing anything about it. That's the part that I think it's like, okay, like I don't honestly expect anything to happen because of Brad Treliving. Having said all that, though, I think it does make sense for the Flames to move on from Kadri. We've talked about it before in this podcast. I think they need to bottom out and they need to draft high in the draft and get elite talent. And the way you do that is by taking away some veteran players from your roster. And Kadri is one of the guys who's keeping this team in the mushy middle right now. He's an older player. He makes a lot of money. And by the time the Flames want to make that turn and transition into being a good team again, do you really want to be paying a 37-year-old $7 million a year? And then the other thing, too, is if you're Nazem Kadri, why do you want to stay in Calgary long-term? You have 4 years left on your contract after this year. You're kind of running out of time in your career to be on a contender again.
Mm-hmm.
If you're Naz, like, do you really want to be on the Flames and be in this rebuild and just suffer over the next 3 years? Like, I don't think that sounds like a lot of fun for Naz.
Yeah.
So I think there's a fit there. Maybe not necessarily Toronto exactly, but just the idea of moving him to more of a contender, I think makes a lot of sense for the Flames. Because another thing to keep in mind too, I mean, look how much his play has declined just in 1 year. Went from being a really good player last year to he's really struggled this year, and he's 34 years old. What's going to happen when he's 35, 36, 37? He might literally become untradeable. So moving him now might make a lot of sense from an asset management perspective. I am all for it.
Yeah, I'm all for it as well for a couple of reasons. You outlined them there too. It feels like Nazem's give a crap meter has gone down because, well, the Flames aren't a very good hockey team right now, and does he actually care enough to show up in these situations and play well for the Flames, or will he be rejuvenated by moving to somewhere else where it's more of a contender type situation? Toronto fits that mold. That kind of a deal between Calgary and Toronto, that's more of a draft deal or an off-season deal where there's more flexibility to move around it, because I think it's a really hard in-season trade to make. But it makes a ton of sense for Toronto to be in on a guy like Nazem Kadri. He fits what they're trying to do there. Brad Treliving signed into that contract. Brad Treliving likes to take wild swings at guys at the draft. He is in on everyone, like you mentioned. And I think for Nazem, why would you want to stay here, like you mentioned, Robert? Why would you want to just be in a mediocre hockey team and just going to the rink out of habit? And that's no way to finish out a career. And that doesn't help the room around the Flames either. And so that's his attitude right now. It might behoove the Flames to move on from this guy for the benefit of their room as well. Not saying Nazem Kadri is bad in the room, but it really could come off that way to younger players who are just seeing this guy not really give a crap night in and night out. And honestly, you watch him play, there are days it looks like he takes the game off. That road trip the Flames were on 2 weeks ago, it looked like he took nights off on that road trip. And so I think it makes sense for him to be wanting to move, for the Flames to move him, and I think it makes sense for Toronto to be one of those teams in on Nazem Kadri. One more topic here before we close out here, Robert. I wanted to get this in because we watch Jonathan Huberdeau every single night, and we watch him fail every single night. We watch him be frustrating every single night. And he had an interesting comparison when he was talking to the Flames Talk and to Megan Mickelson on the Fan 960, where he compared himself to wanting to be like Ryan O'Reilly. Is this cause for concern for you? Is this something that you're excited to see Huberdeau do? Because when I first heard it, I really raised an eyebrow. Are we trying to say that this $10.5 million player that we traded for to bring in to be a offensive driver now wants to be a two-way shutdown type of forward? What do you make of those comments from Jonathan Huberdeau?
Oh boy.
Those are my thoughts too.
Jeez. Hearing that sucks. Like if you would have told me, you know, the day when the Calgary Flames acquired him in the Matthew Tkachuk trade, if you would have told me that he's now 3 years from now, he's going to be focusing on being a defensive shutdown guy, I would probably have an aneurysm. I understand where he's coming from because the offense is it's gone. It's non-existent. I mean, he's scoring some goals this year, which is great. He's got 9 on the season. The shooting percentage is out of control, so I don't think it's all that sustainable. Like, he's scoring on like every shot he takes right now. It's crazy. But he realizes that his skill set has diminished so much that he's no longer a difference maker for this team on the offensive side of the puck. So now he's asking himself, well, how can I provide value? Like, how can I provide value, you know, so the team wants to keep me around, my teammates respect me. Like, what more can I do to step up and help this team? And when you're not producing offense, the next best thing you can do is be a defensive guy and be a shutdown guy and do the small things, like maybe kill more penalties and block more shots and really focus on making smart plays with the puck rather than being creative and taking chances and being an offensive player. It is an absolute shame that it has got to this point with this player that, like, he's not even on pace for 50 points. Like, he's on pace to produce less than he has in his first 2 years in Calgary, which is mind-boggling. So
yeah,
I guess the only way to get anything out of that contract now is for him to start to play defense. I mean, I don't know, man. It's kind of sad, to be totally honest. I get that, like, good on him for wanting to step up and play good defense. Like, that's great. At the same time, you're making $10.5 million and you used to be arguably the best passer in the NHL, and you're not even on pace for 50 points now. It is depressing. That's kind of the way I see it.
I wasn't going to talk Huberdeau, and I really was trying to avoid not having him on the podcast for a few weeks to give him a break from all the conversation around the guy that we've had and other people have had. But then you hear you hear mainstream media and other podcasts praising Huberdeau for changing his game.
Look at all the screen. He's a screen in front of the net. That's amazing. He's standing in front of the net.
Yeah, the power play in front of the net guy, that kind of stuff. And then I started thinking about it. And I'm like, on the power play, fine. That makes a ton of sense. Change it around a little bit, be a disturber, and that's how you're going to help the power play. I like that. But then you go outside the power play, and it's like, you're still not providing anything of value to the Flames. You're still turning the puck over at unbelievable clips. Sure, you're getting your goal with your 900% shooting percentage, but what are you actually providing to this lineup? And to say that he wants to be like Ryan O'Reilly is one thing, but you go look at Ryan O'Reilly's game. Ryan O'Reilly wins faceoffs. Ryan O'Reilly fights guys. Ryan O'Reilly's a pest. Ryan O'Reilly shuts down other teams' top guys. Ryan O'Reilly does a lot of things that we don't see in Huberdeau's game that I'm not sure Huberdeau is even capable of doing. And I heard those comments, and then I heard Megan Mickelson and other people on that radio station praise him for taking and being so bold with what he was talking about. And I just thought to myself, like, are we serious with this? That we're okay with your $10.5 million quote unquote superstar just deciding that he's going to become like a third line shutdown type of guy, but he as a winger, not even a guy who can take faceoffs, not even a guy who can kill penalties regularly and at a high level. It's baffling to me that people are okay with this, because I'm not okay with this. Ryan O'Reilly provides a lot of value for his team. Maybe not this year because that team sucks, but he brings a lot more to his team than we're seeing Huberdeau bring to the Flames. So if Huberdeau is going to go down this path, he needs to start doing a lot more for the Calgary Flames. It's a concerning comment for me. I like that he wants to add more to this Flames roster, but is he really adding more to this roster outside of the power play? And that's where I'll leave it. I won't rant too much more on Huberdeau here. That's where I'll leave it. I just don't understand how fast and how far this game has fallen off, and to come out with these comments, man, it's very much cause for concern. Robert, last word to you before we close out here. Anything else you wanted to bring up on this podcast, or any more comments on Huberdeau from you?
No, and you know what? Moving forward, we probably should stop talking about him so much, because we just keep trashing the guy, and part of you feels bad, but then the other part of you is like, this guy's making $10.5 million to play.
I didn't need to.
Yeah, exactly.
He brought this one on himself with that comment. If he didn't make that comment, he wouldn't have been anywhere near this podcast.
Yeah, that's fair. And like, I get he wants to be a better defensive player. That's probably what he should have said. Like, I really want to focus on playing better defense. But like, to say, I want to turn into Ryan O'Reilly, who's a center and who's won a Conn Smythe and who's won a Selke and plays on Team Canada's in the past. Like, that's quite the bold claim from old Hubie boy. But no, man, it was a good episode. Lots of great topics of conversation. And geez, I really hope over the next few weeks here, heading into Christmas time, because there's nothing better than watching hockey during Christmas time. Like, I love it. I really hope the Flames can kind of step up here and start to play a little bit more of an entertaining brand of hockey for their fans. And hopefully some of these vets can step up and start to score some more goals and make this a little bit more fun of a season, because it's trending in a pretty ugly direction right now.
Robert, what's coming up from you on flamesnation.ca, and where can these folks find you on social media?
Continue to follow me at Ring of Fire CGY and follow all the Flames Nation accounts on social media. I'm running those bad boys these days, and it's been a lot of fun. But that's pretty much it.
And you can follow the show at Red Mile Rundown on whatever platform that you want to follow. We'll be on all of those. And don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button on your favorite podcast catcher. Thanks so much for joining us on this week's episode of the show. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the games. Got some good ones. Flames are playing the Predators and the two Florida teams the rest of this week. Should be just be some good hockey for us to talk to next week on the show. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you next week on the Red Mile Rundown.